Let's not mince words here. These days it's a little tricky to get trustworthy news. Even sources that we used to think were less likely to stretch the truth are giving in to having a dramatic story rather than delivering facts. And you, humble video watcher, may be wondering how to uncover facts under all the layers and layers of rumor, oversaturated tragedy, falsifications, and misinformation. Well, today, we're going to list off some helpful ways you can keep informed amidst all this so-called fake news on this episode of Stuff You've Probably Wondered. This video will be a little different than some of my others because rather than give you info through a sort of story format, I'm going to chuck a list of tips at you in a semi-organized fashion so you can get right to being a better gatherer of facts. First off, you need to know that everyone has bias. You do, your parents do, I do, and of course the people you see or read about all have a level of bias. This basically means that no matter who you talk to, they're going to have an opinion about something. It's important to know what the difference between a fact and opinion is, even though it may seem obvious. Let's take a hot-button issue that may have some muddled facts and opinions in them: global climate change. It is a proven fact that the Earth, over the course of the last century, has gotten a few degrees warmer on average, and this changing of temperature has begun to change the climates of parts of the world. What I just said is a fact because it is a piece of information that contains evidence. You can observe it, you can analyze it, whatever, but it is something that is actually there. It would be an opinion to say that global climate change is not an important issue, or even an issue at all, and that the world has many more important things to worry about. An opinion by this example is a statement that is able to be debated or can be proven with evidence. Okay, so now we have that out of the way, let's move on to some tips about recognizing sources that use fact and opinion. Nearly every single news source, website, TV show, book, or anything else that says stuff has a combination of the two. This is called objectivity, or being factual, and subjectivity, being opinionated. To make it very simple to determine how objective or subjective a news organization is, since those are the media that get the most exposure, here is a chart that shows some popular ones. The further to the left they are, the more subjective, such as Fox News, NBC, Huffington Post, and Breitbart, and the further to the right, the more objective, such as the Associated Press, PBS, and Al Jazeera. Towards the middle are sources that have a bit of both, like Wikipedia and NPR, but don't let this list dissuade you from avoiding all the sources on the left. It's better to have several sources' takes on one story than rely on one source for several stories. Additionally, when watching or reading a story from a news source, compare them. Not only is it important to see what a source says, it's equally important to see what they don't say, because they could leave out details that could change the entire outlook of a story. This is especially helpful when you're skeptical about a certain topic and want to learn more. Let's move on to websites. As you probably know, you can't trust everything you see or hear on the internet. The internet is an open forum where anyone can say anything. So here are some tips for gathering news online and how to tell if a source is reliable or not. First, if you're reading an article, look and find the author or organization who wrote it. You can find out pretty easily what the author stands for, if they're conservative or liberal, if they're for or against LGBT rights, if they like cats or dogs, just by seeing a bio or reading other pieces by them. If the article does not have an obvious author, it may not be trustworthy. Another important tip is to look at the domain name of the site you're on. If it ends in .gov or .edu, it'll probably always be trustworthy. .org or .com is where it gets shady, because although .org stands for non-profit organizations, they could still be biased, and domains ending in .com, short for commercial, is a total toss-up. The design of sites is vital as well. You can tell if a site may not have the best info if they aren't designed well, and this usually applies to smaller sources, from small organizations to one person running it. It also helps to determine what a site stands for by finding the About Us or Contact Us tabs. If there isn't one, the site may not be as legitimate as other sources. Finally, when reading an article or watching a video on its given subject, pay attention to how it's trying to make you feel. Is it trying to make you angry, sad, frustrated, scared? While it's a great stylistic choice to include emotion in a piece, emotion as the focal point can be dangerous. So there are some hopefully valuable tips you can use yourself as you gather up facts on whatever you're searching for. If you still feel like you're unsure of what sites contain facts and which try to play up the drama factor, down in the description is a link to a Google Doc made by Melissa Zimdars, a communications professor at Merrimack College, that contains a chart of over 1,000 websites and how they fare on the trustworthy meter, as well as some additional tips that I didn't include in this video. If this video was in any way helpful, you'll be better equipped for gathering the real facts out there in the world, and not just the alternative ones. Thanks for watching, and as always, if you have any questions you'd like me to answer or have an original song you'd like me to put in the background of a future video, leave it in the comments or email me at stuffyou'veprobably.wondered@gmail.com. Also in the comments, tell me, how much of this video do you think was common sense or stuff you already knew? How much of the news you are exposed to do you think is misleading, biased, or subjective? Either way, I'll see you next time on Stuff You've Probably Wondered.